Hey guys, welcome back to All Things Knives. It's your host Fletcher, and today we are going to talk about sharpening. We are going to talk about the way that I like to sharpen my knives, and throughout the year of 2021, as what I've kind of noticed as I've started carrying steels, sharpening a lot. I sharpen at my job as well, is I notice that as I put an edge on a certain way, that they do perform different. And I just kind of wanted to talk about the pros and cons of several edge styles that I have here on the table. All right, so let's start with my standard edge. This is one of my standard edges that I did for the longest time up until I really started to really carry in my knives and kind of record. And, I used to just switch knives off all the time. But now I'm carrying the same knife and the same steel for a long period of time, and I'm sharpening more the same steel. And I'm kind of noticing how they carry, right? And how certain edges might affect the way that the steel itself carries. So on this guy, I've got, if you guys can see it, you can see it's pretty polished edge, with still some grain to it. If you guys can hear it, let's see if you can hear that. Guys hear that? It's definitely got bite to it. So this is done on a work sharp system. This is the 320, 600, and then the ceramic. I used to think that would do killer edges. It still does. But I've noticed as I've carried my knives that yes, this gets your knife super sharp. But I've noticed that as it's cutting, it tends to actually degrade faster. It's still a good edge. You can still strop them, and it's perfect. Their work sharp systems are perfect up until you're learning how to freehand, basically. These do a really good job, and I'm just gonna set that out there so you guys can see the knife. And then something of comparison, I guess, would be something like this AUS 8. This is a polished edge, but it's on diamond instead of ceramic. And I've noticed that for a polished edge, this is very, very polished, it's got a ton of bite to it. And what I noticed about the Venev with the higher polish, right, is that it's about as aggressive as this, but the edge does last just a little bit longer. And I'm thinking because it's got some bite to it. There's maybe some carbide sticking out, although AUS 8 doesn't have as much carbide. What I'm saying is that I noticed that, if you take away the difference in steels, and you're looking purely at the edge, the way that it breaks down, because there's different, I know how AUS 8 breaks down. I've done a cut test with it, and I know the way it breaks down. That was on ceramic, right? That was on one of these edges. This is a 2500. It's similar to 2500 grit. It's the 800 on the Venev bonded. And I noticed that the way it breaks down is, it does get toothy, right? And I've noticed that when I'm opening boxes, I can feel it get duller and duller. And then all of a sudden I just keep opening boxes and it's like I got more edge to it. Like it broke down those serrations, and then it broke down to the point where it got sharp again, which I've noticed that's something people say about Maximate. And I think that's something that lower grit, or higher bite edges do. Like you can probably hear the bite on this guy. Put it up to the camera for you. It definitely sounds different and bites different, but that's probably the steel than the ceramic edge. So I do, and I carried these for a little bit, and I was like, okay, I kind of like them a little more. And then that was until my crew wear carry. And different steels like different polishes, So like AUS 8, I probably wouldn't do what I did on this one. I'd probably stick with this. But Z-Wear and crew wear are so similar that what I did on this guy, I definitely recommend for your Z-Wear and your crew wear. And so this is a 400 Vinev edge, which is similar to about 1,000. And this is something I noticed with my Rex 45 as well. So it is a higher carbide steel, you know. So I probably wouldn't do ceramic like I did on this guy, or even do higher polish on diamond like I did this guy. I would probably do what I did, about 1,000 grit to 1,200, right? Because my Rex 45 I sharpened on diamond plates, but this guy I sharpened on the 400, and then I stropped to 1 micron. I stropped from 12 to 7 to 5, 3, and then 1, right? So plenty of time on the strop. And man, can I just say that this has a really nice polished edge, but if you can hear that bite, it does have a really good bite to it. And it's got like that second wind I was telling you about. I'll cut through stuff. I'm like, oh, my knife's about to get dull. And then I'll just be like, well, I don't have time to sharpen, so I just keep going. And then it's like second wind. Second wind kicks in and it just keeps going. You know, which used to be kind of an attribute that I only heard on Maximate. But on these edges, it's kind of something that I'm feeling. Like the steel is behaving better on a rougher edge, right? That's polished, you know, lower grit, but stropped, right? Lower grit, stropped. It's performing better. And my only reason that I could think that is because these newer steels that we have higher carbide content than even something like this. And not only is it higher carbide, it's a different carbide, right? It's vanadium carbide, which vanadium is super hard, so it takes a lot to wear it down or even tear the carbide out of the steel itself from cutting. You know, ideally you don't want tear out, but it can happen while you're cutting. It can also happen while you're sharpening if you're using the wrong abrasives. So this guy, on 1,000 grit edge, I'd say actually just because of the way it sharpened, it felt better than this that's at a higher Rockwell, right? Basically the same steel. Z-wear and crew wear analogs of each other. It's like 204P and 20 CV. And I think that's because more carbide. I like the way this cut better. You know, and the geometries are actually somewhat similar. You know, I think this is maybe 22 and this is 23 thousandths behind the edge. You know, and that's after a couple sharpenings on this guy. So this is about 1,000 grit, this is about 2,500, and this is probably in the same ballpark, but with ceramic versus diamond. This guy, I'm not sure what edge it has on it currently, but I can tell you what I've used. I've used diamond, and you can actually see the scratches on it from the diamond plates. I used diamond plates on this guy, and it was definitely a coarse edge, you know, 1,200, so actually a little bit higher than this guy. You know, and my strops, I think on this I did a 5, a 3, and a 1, right? And I would say the way the edge broke down was a little different because it's a, you know, diamond plate versus Vinev, which is actually a little more concentrated. It does strop back well, the steel. On either of these, they strop back well. I performed a little better. Like, they performed pretty similar. This, I think, lasted a little longer. This sharpened easier, and that's just differences in the steel. I'd say there was a difference in the way the edges performed. Like on this guy, I don't think I had any second wind. And I'm thinking that maybe comes down to heat treat, but the edge was really aggressive that I put on this guy. When it was diamond, it was really aggressive. I did sharpen on the work sharp system for some of it. You know, and those edges behaved. Like this guy died pretty quick. I did like the diamond edges more on this one. This one was plate. And I would say for sharpening, I'd probably like this is easier to feel your burrs on for sure when you're sharpening the diamond plates. The Vinev though, I've noticed that like my other crewwear too, it does the same thing that this guy does. You get like a second wind as you're cutting through boxes, which is awesome. I've noticed that the Venev 1000 is about really where I like sharpening crewware. And the Rex 45 performed really well on the diamond plates. So just as a general, when I'm sharpening now, I probably won't ever try to touch ceramic again. I'll probably just take it to about 1200 to 1000. I will strop. I have a 12 micron strop now. I'll probably do 12 micron, 7 micron, 5, 3, and then 1. And I have found that on a lot of steels, but if you want to narrow it down to crewware, I have found that on crewware, that performs really well. If you're cutting through a lot of boxes and you're hitting a lot of cardboard, try that grip progression and the strop progression as well, and see how you guys like it. Maybe share how you guys sharpen down below as well. But I'm kind of finding out. I just wanted to start a little discussion on sharpening. That's really what this video is. Different sharpening ways and how I've noticed they've affected my edges. If you are a beginner, stick with the work sharp, build up your base, and then start to move off to, I'd actually probably recommend diamond plates because it's easier to feel the burr on them. When I was first transitioning, super easy to feel the burr. If you do like an 80 grit or a 120, it burrs up super fast. And then I would definitely recommend doing something freehand, like the Venevs. I really like the edge that the Venev takes. Like I just told you, I probably would try to, for a higher carbide steel, try to keep it below 1200. There are some steels that like to be more polished, like your lesser carbide steels, like 14C, 28N, even D2, I would probably take to 2500 or even on a ceramic. But for the higher carbide steels, even something like M4, I would take to a lower grit just because I think it'll perform better. And you're really getting the most out of that carbide, right? The reason higher carbides are awesome, they have bite. Even when they are polished, they have bite. But after you strop them, they're going to take a phenomenal edge. They're going to keep that edge. And the working edge is going to be really aggressive and nice. Let me know what grip progression or what sharpening system you guys use down below. Let me know what you think of, what I discuss. Feel free to call me, say it's BS or whatever, but from what I've noticed from this, this is purely subjective. This isn't really objective. This is purely subjective. I tend to like coarser edges more. Let me know what you guys think, on higher carbide steels, on how they perform. If you prefer a polished edge, let me know why. Let me know. Let's start a discussion about sharpening down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. I'm doing a giveaway at 500 subscribers. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Stay sharp.